Before I start, I'm going to use one of my very precious minutes to say what some other folks have said, but I'm going to say it more dramatically because I feel it really strongly. That the excellence of this day and the organization of it really needs to be acknowledged. So Taylor Kendall, Keith Patterson, Diane Watkins, Todd Wolf. You know, we're up here, we do this, but the people who really make this happen, and it's a lot more than just lining up a bunch of clowns to come up here and talk. It's an intense organization, which I've had an opportunity to kind of see, not only backstage, but in the weeks coming up for the preparation. And Peggy, I also want to say to you, what a hell of a team, that you could do a PhD thesis defense while your folks are putting together this conference. Brilliant job. Okay, so I titled this Learning in Chaos. We're going to talk about chaos a little bit later, and we're going to push the boundaries of my knowledge. But remember, even now, chaos doesn't mean disorder. Chaos theory is about a different kind of order. Learning in chaos is actually good news, as opposed to learning, say, picking something at random in CLB. But let's talk about another title I should have given this is The Journey of Learning. A lot of folks have referenced learning as a journey today. And I've been thinking about that. It really sounds great. You know, it's a great advertising logo, The Journey of Learning. But remember, as we used to say at the school where I worked, be careful what you wish for. A journey is an experience. So that 5-hour plane ride that Dan Morris talked about earlier, that school is like for most kids, that 5-hour plane ride is a trip. But John Wesley Powell taking wooden boats down the Colorado for 1,000 miles, down a river that no one had ever gone before as far as they knew, that was completely uncharted, where they didn't know if they had enough food, and in fact they almost didn't. That's a journey. So when we say a learning journey, we mean it. And I'm going to take you on a very quick journey that I've been on in the last few months. It starts in October of last year when I read about Benoit Mandelbrot. Familiar? Wasn't familiar to me, except that name, Mandelbrot. I thought, what is that? So I'm reading the obit in the Denver Post. I'm one of the last 300 people in Denver who has a subscription, and every time I go on vacation or on a trip, I always make sure that the newspapers are given to newspapers in education. So I just wanted you all to know that. And I was kind of intrigued. Who is this guy? Well, he is, as probably many of you know, the father, the inventor of a field of mathematics. So this guy, and the thought of this, so somebody just kind of sits down and he thinks up a system of mathematics is fascinating to me. And it started with a publication in which he was challenging or raising the question of how long is the coastline of Britain? Are we running? And his answer to this question is, it really depends on how closely you look. So scale changes the answer. That first image of Britain, it's pretty easy to answer the length of the coastline. But when you're looking at each of these little nooks and crannies here at the mouth of the Thames, then the answer becomes significantly different. And Mandelbrot, I really like this quote that came from his obit. Why is geometry, he said, often described as cold and dry? One reason lies in its inability to describe the shape of a cloud, a mountain, a coastline, or a tree. Clouds are not spheres, mountains are not cones, coastlines are not circles, and bark is not smooth, nor does lightning travel in a straight line. And he decided that there was a way mathematically to express what those things are. So he developed a set of recursion formulas. There's a beautiful explanation for this on a site called coolmath.com. If you're interested, it actually makes one understand what fractals are about. Here's some examples. So, the leaf of a fern. These ferns are computer generated, just from a fractal formula. This fern-like thing is mountains in Tibet. This element, fractal element of a hydrothermal spring. This is broccoli, a mixture of broccoli and cauliflower. Cauliflower is one of my favorite fractals, and I have them in my salads all the time. Clouds are fractals, and on and on and on. Electricity, lightning, fractals. So these do exist. We did need to describe them. Mandelbrot figured out a way. I was excited. Here's my favorite. This is the Whirlpool Galaxy. They probably don't think of themselves as the Whirlpool Galaxy, but we do. This is a hurricane cloud. Two different examples of a fractal. Okay. It also turns out that Mandelbrot, remember we're on a journey, is connected to the development of chaos theory and was very influential in that development. So, as I said before, chaos is not random disorder. A chaos system, and I'm going to say this and then we'll have reached the end of my level of understanding. A chaos system is a system that's actually deterministic, but very sensitive to tiny variable changes, which when introduced, cause the system to go off in directions that one would not have predicted, but are in fact determined by the givens of the system and by the equations that describe it. Examples, weather. So Lorenz, I forget Lorenz's first name, not Benoit, I know that. This is a Lorenz attractor. So Lorenz, who was one of the developers of chaos theory, is the guy who wrote that famous article that some people hear about, the butterfly and the hurricane. That's Lorenz. Somebody actually wrote that. It wasn't just made up. He said, what a butterfly's wings flapping over North Africa could cause a hurricane in Europe, or something like that. And other people talk about chaos as a way of predicting or describing financial markets or commodities markets. This is a chaos in cupcake making. I just thought it was kind of fun. But the idea, first, of Benoit, fractals, chaos, they got me intrigued. So then I started to think about, and I've been playing a game ever since. New knowledge developed since 1975. 75 is kind of the date you can give to when Mandelbrot said fractals are a thing. And I've been collecting examples of new ideas, new fields of knowledge that did not exist before 1975. For example, stem cells, the Gaia hypothesis, which describes the whole world as an organism, the existence of dark matter, which now science thinks makes up 90% of the universe, and up until just a few years ago, we didn't even know existed. Things like that. One of these, and in particular interest to me, this, by the way, is a picture of dark matter, which you can't see. One of these is new knowledge developed since 1975 about how we learn. And this is, for us, the most important new knowledge. Now, we all know this, but because we're in schools, we tend to forget. So cognitive science, this is not like some weird bunch of folks over in, some weird school district. And this is also not some, crazy guy up at the end of the day when I wish we could just start the drawing. This is the best that cognitive science thinks, believes that we construct knowledge inside our heads, by which I don't mean we make it up out of nothing, although sometimes as a high school teacher I can tell you we do, but it means that our neuronal nets are firing all the time, and as input comes to them, they see where they don't see in the sense that I'm talking about it, but the nets put the new inputs into places that they fit in order to construct more complex and interesting neural nets. So this idea that we still carry in school, that somehow we open it up the brain and we pour information in, cognitive science has abandoned. And we all know from our own experience, it's not how we learn. We don't learn by people giving us information. We learn because we construct it inside our own brains to the extent that it's relevant, fits with other things we already know, is important for us to use in some way, whatever. It's internally built by network structures, contextually linked. We all know this, but it's important to remember because it has a lot to do with this inquiry thing that we've been talking about. So, what is inquiry? The posing of a question after one has encountered some experience. And then after posing that question, doing some kind of investigation to figure out what the hell is going on, meanwhile communicating with others who are doing that same investigation, trying to fit this new information into what one already knows, raising new questions, wondering additional things, reflecting on the learning that's going on, putting out the information, having it tested by others. In other words, the process of inquiry is the best technology that we have designed to reflect how, in fact, we actually learn. So it's not just a good pedagogy. It's not just like, oh, when I have some time, I'm going to have my kids do some inquiry. It is the best way we have to emulate the actual workings of our brains. So one could make an argument, I certainly won't, because I'm not an argumentative type, that it isn't just something we ought to do, it may be the only way that we ought to be doing our learning in schools. And one other piece of that argument that one might make would be that it's the one way to really prepare us for the life that we want to be leading. The life in which we are continually taking a journey of learning, in which we are heroes, engaged in the pursuit of deeper understanding, of more knowledge, of better selves, of a better universe. And that the more that we understand and pursue inquiry with our kids and our colleagues, the more that we will prepare those kids, those colleagues, and ourselves for the heroic journey of learning that we all want to be taking. Thanks.